Small town advantage. Hi, I'm Brian Pombo. I'm using this to say right here. I don't know if that makes any sense or not, this stupid thing. I'm Brian Pombo. Welcome back to Brian J. Pombo Live. The small town advantage. What is the advantage to being in a small town? I do a whole video on what a big city advantage is, but I think it's rather obvious what a big city advantage. So let's get that out of the way. Big city advantage is just a huge amount of people, huge amount of convenience, huge amount of, and we're talking about this from a business perspective. If you're new here, this is a business conversation. So, but I'm not just talking business. I'm talking any type of interactive conversation, interactive communication, interactive. If you've got a charity, if you've got a whatever, that's the type of business I'm talking when you're working with people. There's an advantage to the small town. The big city advantage, though, would be all the obvious things. Is you just have enormous amounts of choice, enormous amounts of people, of from a business sense, of customers, clients, of patients, of parishioners, of whatever, name your title for the person you're looking for. You've got more options in a big city. Any type of larger environment, you're going to have a lot more options. I'll tell you what brought this into mind, and then I'll get into the small town advantage. It was, I grew up in a relatively small town called Tracy, California. At the time, it was relatively small, very similar in size to the town I'm currently at. It grew really big. It's just outside the Bay Area in the San Joaquin Valley, in the Central Valley of California. It's outside about an hour out from San Francisco. It's a lot longer than an hour nowadays, but back in the day it took you about an hour to get into the big city. And it very much had a small town feel. It had a lot of rural environment to it. You had a lot of agriculture. A lot of people used to talk about the fact all the enormous, outrageous smells that you would get traveling through Tracy, because there was a sugar beet plant, and there were farms and dairies, and a Heinz factory, one of the largest Heinz factories in the country, was there. And so you always smelled ketchup or vinegar or something in the air coming from Heinz. And so there was all these outrageous smells. We also had a Loris Cutter's potato chip place, so you'd smell potato chips on occasion. There's an olive distribution plant there. Tons of crazy smells growing up. Very agricultural, very small, but it grew very quickly as I was a kid, and watching it through the years, it grew really quick because you had a lot of people moving out from the Bay Area, or people wanting to live near the Bay Area but not wanting to pay the high price, so they'd buy a commuter home in the Tracy area, and it grew and it grew and it grew and it grew. It's no longer the small town that I grew up in. And traveling back there for the spring Easter holiday and so forth, visiting my family, which is a common thing we do during this season, we found I got a lot of the same feelings that I got when I was in town as a young adult. As a young adult, I had moved away from town for a couple years, and then moved back. Lived in much larger cities, Sacramento, worked in a skyscraper, lived in a college town, Chico, California. Did a lot of wild stuff for a couple years. Moved back to town, try to get my bearings, try to connect up with some my old friends, and try and build something. Where do we go from here? What do we do from this point on? So it was after 9/11 and so forth. So it was kind of a weird time in the world. Everything was kind of in flux. And at the same time, it was very positive. There was a positivity about what was possible, about what we could do, even though the world seemed to be turning upside down. And during that period of time, I felt like the world was so big because the town I was in was growing out of control. Everywhere around me, everywhere you go in the Bay Area and that area of Northern California, everything's bustling. Everything's happening, everything's moving. There's still quite a bit of agriculture. There's still a bit of the country feel here and there. But for the most part, it's overwhelming. You can't wrap your mind around it. You can't hold it. And a big picture thinker like me always had a difficult time seeing how I could fit in and where my move was, because there was too much opportunity. I got overwhelmed with opportunity. It was everywhere. It was on every corner. And so where do you go from there? It occurred to me just this weekend while being back there that just in the last handful of years, this adventure that I've been telling you about, really a whole lot of this came about live on here. You can go back and re-listen to our conversations when I first started kind of reaching out locally. This was just before the pandemic situation, which it actually fit in well with the pandemic situation, but wanting to reach out locally, getting to know all the people around me, getting to know the structure of the town, the social fabric of the town, the business fabric of the town, the government of the town, and the county, the surrounding county. And I was able to do it. I have been able to do it, and every step I've taken in that direction, every large step I've taken in that direction has brought back tenfold. And my ability to wrap my mind around how to meet new people, how to develop opportunity out of thin air, how to find people that I connect with and can have conversations with, all these type of things that always seem to be beyond me. They always seem to be such a big step forward. I can do it in a small town. And my whole life up until that point, up until mid 2019, everything up until that point was me trying to wrap my mind around the world. When really, you ought to wrap your mind around wherever you're at. Now, can you accomplish the same thing in a big city situation? I believe you can. And here's how I would do it. You can do this anywhere you're at, but you have to find a small locality that you can focus on. So if you're in a specific neighborhood, if you're in a specific district or county, if you can break it down into a smaller chunk and just focus on that, focus on being the expert in that area, focus on being the one that knows people, being the connector in that area, being do what I did. Go and start a podcast and start interviewing people. It's easier now than it's ever been. It's tougher now than it's ever been to become big and make $1 million off of it, off of doing a podcast. Very few of us are going to go out there and be Joe Rogan. But if you're just looking to get out there and experience life, meet new people, build a business, maybe sell something, maybe you have something to sell, maybe you have something to get people into, whatever it is, you can do it in a small town atmosphere more than anywhere else. It's really an incredible thing, and this realization that's come to me has shown me why things have been so successful for the last few years, and why I can still continue to keep a huge part of my focus locally while growing globally at the same time. It's very, very cool concept. You can do it too. A great way of doing it is content marketing. Content marketing is the idea of putting out some form of content out there, something that's comfortable for you, something that's easy to express. Some people that's going to be writing, some people that's going to be talking, some people that's going to be doing video and visual work of some sort. Find a way to put content out there on a regular basis. I've got a talk all about it. It's a training that you can take. contentmarketingquestion.com. That's all I got for today. You have a good one. We'll see you next time. In the meantime, get out there and let the magic happen.